Thank you all for braving the sunshine to be out here. I was excited to see a good crowd here, so it's a great opportunity. It's an honor for me to be back at JMU to speak in front of you all today. When you talk about budgeting, most people come up with a lot of stress and a lot of fear, a lot of concerns. And so I wanted to walk through some basic ideas with you, but my son told me today, my son took a class today in financial literacy. He's in 12th grade. And he said, Dad, I just watched a lecture on budgeting, and I hope yours is a lot better than mine, because it's really boring. The kids were banging their heads with notebooks because they were so bored. I said, well, I'll try to talk and make it a lot more exciting. So I'll do the best I can. What I want you to walk away with 4 key ideas that will empower you to really think hard about budgeting and to really use budgeting as a tool to create what you want financially in life. So when you think about budgeting, it's basic stuff. Everybody knows, you take your income, what you think you might make, and you take your expenses and you subtract them from each other, and hopefully you have a positive number at the bottom, or maybe a 0. But in many cases, when you put that into real life, you take your actual life and you take your expenses and you end up with a negative number, which creates stress. And so what happens is you throw the budget out the window and you go and you live your life. That's what I did when I got out of Madison. I didn't worry about budgeting at first. And I read a book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People in My 20s. Anybody read that book? I can barely see. Okay, well, it's a fabulous book. One of Stephen's habits that I would encourage you to think about is called Begin with the End in Mind. And the idea is that before you plan any type of activity, you really got to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what the future is. And so as a certified financial planner, my clients come to me and they list out their goals. They say, this is what I want to do in 10 years. This is what I want to do in 20 years. And so the process of creating a plan empowers the budget. The budget makes the plan work. And without the budget, you don't get the plan. And it's very hard to think about a budget if you don't have a long-term plan. I personally like a 10-year plan. And the reason is you can really dream big with the 10-year plan. A short-term plan, like a year out or 6 months out, it's all realistic. But 10 years out, you can really come up with anything. I did my first plan in my 20s. I had goals to start a company, to take that company public. I had goals to save a certain amount, to get married, to buy a house, to have a family. What I didn't make goals for was to declare bankruptcy because I didn't manage my money right. I didn't create a goal to lose my house to foreclosure because I bought too big a house. And so I would say to you that you've got to create this plan. Now, the second thing I want you to think about that will help the budgeting process work better is this concept that money is abundant. A lot of people think money is scarce, and I can tell you that it's not. Money is abundant. Money flows to the people that create the most value to society. The greater the value, the more people you reach out, the greater the money will flow to you. When most people think about budgeting, they just think about the expense component of budgeting. Their income is fixed, and they've got these expenses that they have to decide between, and it's really no fun. It's a lot of stress. And so if you think about the money and the income side, your income is also something that you can grow and create, and the longer out you think, the more you can create. These two people, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, their businesses didn't exist. Mark Zuckerberg is worth, 20-some billion dollars now. He's still in his 20s. Elizabeth Holmes started a company. I don't know if any of you all know Elizabeth Holmes, but she's considered to be the next Bill Gates. She's at 19, she started Theranos, which is a company that created, by pricking your finger and drawing blood, she's completely eliminated all of the need for doing blood vials and other blood sort of testing, and it's wiping out a whole industry. And so these 20-something-year-olds have created tremendous value in society, which is where their money is flowing from. Now, you don't have to do that internally. You can do that at your job. You can do that anywhere. You don't have to start your own company. But the more value that you can create in society, the greater the money will flow, and that handles the top part of the income. The third topic I'd like you to remember, which is something that seems pretty basic, but most people don't live this way, and that is to save before you spend. With credit cards, most of us take the time to spend money on the credit card, and what you're doing is you're spending money today, and you're going to pay for it tomorrow. And so you get the order backwards. The credit card comes in, you pay your bill with your earnings, and there's nothing left over. And so the only way to reverse that process is to get rid of the credit card. Now, most of you, I don't know how many of you have credit cards, hopefully more debit cards than credit cards. But what we encourage our clients to do that especially have difficulties with budgeting is to shift to a debit card, use checks, use cash, but don't pay in advance for things that you're going to have to pay back later. And that completely changes the dynamic. And so the spending process, if you save first, what we recommend is saving in 3 buckets. The first is an emergency fund. The second is a investment account, a Vanguard or Fidelity mutual fund, something like that. And then the third is in a retirement account at your job. And so if you think about taking your savings, saving first, putting it into 3 buckets, even if it's $25, it doesn't matter. A small amount, it's a habit. And then spending after that. And so earn, save, spend. We also encourage giving, and that's also before spending. So if you're charitably inclined, and I encourage everybody to be that way, it's earn, save, give, spend. And that's the pattern that we hope to do. Now, the fourth item that I think is very powerful is the concept of needs versus wants. When you budget, everything is a want, right? You want to buy things at the mall. You want to get a nice car. You want to buy a big house. You want to have a lot of things. And back at JMU, when I was here, we took a course and learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Has anybody had that course? Okay, good. It's not Maslow's hierarchy of wants. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And these are the things that one might need to become happy. The first 2 at the bottom are biological and physical needs. Basically, food and shelter. Those are the only things on that whole list that cost money. Everything else is free. The need for safety, the need for love, the need for belongingness. All these things are free, and everything else that's not one of those things is a want. And so when you can distinguish between needs and wants, it's very easy to manage your budget. Because you can say, well, do I really need that, or is that just a want? And then you can make decisions. And if you have a long-term plan, you can have that plan drive that decision, and it makes it much easier. Another thing to think about is you will always, always want more than you earn. There are very, very few people that I've ever met that don't continuously want more and more and more. I have clients that make $3 or $4 million a year, and they still want more. They spend all of it. They don't save anything. How can that be? Well, after you want a house, then it's a jet. It continues to be nicer cars, nicer watches, and it just happens that way for not everybody, but for most people that have challenges in the budgeting area. So Mike Tyson, I don't know how many of you know who Mike Tyson is, but Mike Tyson earned $400 million as a boxer. And 3 years after his boxing career finished, he went bankrupt. His wants far exceeded his needs and his earnings. Another example of that is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson in his career earned $1.1 billion and went bankrupt. To me, it's amazing that can happen. But when you fill your life up with wants, it's a never-ending cycle. A better mentor for me is the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama wants happiness, and he doesn't find it through physical things. And so the more that you can think through things like that you don't need those things to make yourself happy, you don't need to keep up with the Joneses. These are tools that can help you manage yourself through life and through the budgeting process. So, one thing I want to leave you with when you think about these 4 tools is this idea that how many of you guys go to Starbucks and get coffee? Is that something that people do? I didn't know this because I don't go to Starbucks, but the average spend at Starbucks is about $5.50. And imagine you choose to go to Starbucks and you spend $5.50 a day. And you do that on a month. That's $165 a month. And then you did that over the period of your lifetime up until retirement. You'd spend a whole lot of money. But if you took the same amount of money and you put that into a Roth IRA account or retirement account, you'd have $1.5 million there. Now, how many of you would rather have $1.5 million than have all those cups of coffee? I don't see anybody raising their hand, but I can't see over the light. But I think that would be a much better alternative. And so it's understanding the choices that you make. And our panel today that's coming up after me is going to help you think through those choices. And I think that's really the idea of budgeting, the idea of these 4 items that will help you get there to what you want. And hopefully this will set you on your way to meeting your financial goals over your lifetime. Thanks a lot for having me.